Oh, we are propagating. I feel like we are going to be live any second now. We're doing the wonderful live thing where we don't. Oh, we are live. Okay, awesome. Hello, everyone. It's that time of the week again. Today we are going to be talking about search intent and SERPs and what they are, why they matter. And to start off, my name is Phelan. I work at Seymour Digital Media, where we focus on search-based marketing.
And my name is Greg, and I work with Original 72 Creative. We're a full service website graphic design digital marketing firm in Vancouver.
Awesome. And so, as I said at the top, today we are talking about search intent and SERPs and how the two interact. So I guess at the very top of it, we'll talk about like what actually is the SERP and what is search intent. Figure that's a good place to start.
Sir, I was joking quickly with Pip because Pip originally was supposed to do the live. You're stepping in
Yeah,
quickly on short notice, which thank you for that. But
yeah,
my
no
joke
problem.
was I like chicken corn chowder, sir. I have it for lunch a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I was, or I would make like a feudalism joke, like we're all just SERPs to the Google gods. Um, like either pun works. Either pun works. Um, but yeah, I guess starting off with the SERP, it's the search engine results page. So that's when you go to a search engine and you type in whatever your query is, and this actually technically could apply to YouTube, to Amazon. Anytime you type into a search bar and you go for a search, what it presents back to you is really important because it tells you what signals that they're saying are, oh, this is when you typed in this search query or like for this thing, this is what we're giving you back. And so that way you can tell who's actually been trying to optimize for it and who just kind of fell into it, because there are definitely some people that don't do very much and still manage to show up pretty well for their, you know, the service or product that they were hoping to show up for.
Yeah, I think it confuses people when we as experts use the term SERPs because basically SERPs is just the Google results page.
Yeah.
why can we not just call it the Google results page? So like people would understand that, but no, we have to confuse it with the SERPs.
Yeah,
So
well, I think it's also has to do with like including Bing, uh, including DuckDuckGo, because those are also like what they're showing you in that time. Like that's why
so,
they make it search
so
engine.
any search result page
Yeah,
from
yeah,
any
yeah,
search engine.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's definitely one where, you're putting your question into this little box, and then the answer that it spits out, and like that's trying to let you know, like, oh, when you type in these words, we think you mean this, um,
Yeah.
because they still have to interpret words. Like, what did you mean when you typed in this thing? Did you, one of the classic ones is going to be the like, Pip always uses it like water. If you just type in the word water into Google, what is it that you're expecting to get back? And so usually Google will do, if you've got a single word, they're like, okay, I guess you want a definition of this word, because like how else are they supposed to interpret it? And so
Yeah.
that's definitely one where a lot of your queries, if you think about what you type into Google, it's usually like a question, or if it's not a question, then it's like a specific, like, I want bakeries near me. And so Google knows that you've got a modifier saying near me, so they know they're going to use your location. Then they're going to find bakeries that are in your location, and so it's probably going to give you a map that says like, oh, you got a Cobb's down the road, something like that. And so like, oh, it matches up with the search intent with what they're showing you.
Yeah, so let's try to get into maybe the anatomy of the SERPs, at least for Google, because I think you touched on um, the fact that you're in your example saying water. Really, there's no context to that search. Do you want to find water to drink? Do you
Yeah,
are you want to go swimming in a lake? What is it?
yeah,
And so Google's trying to figure out best possible what the context of your search means. And so for that, I think the way that they have their search set up on the page is good because it tries to give you, like you said, sometimes it'll give you a definition, and that typically shows on the right side at the top of the page. Either it'll pull up maybe like a Wikipedia definition most of the time. What is that? Do you know what that spot's called on the SERPs?
Yeah, so that would be, they call it a featured snippet. Typically,
Right.
when they kind of take a block of text from another website, and then that's kind of like they call it the zero click attribution. So basically, you didn't have to go into the Wikipedia page, they just gave you the definition that was on the page. Um, it's definitely become uh, more prevalent over time, where Google is trying to get it so that you're not going to another page. You know, that's the generally, as they make money off of the searches, they're definitely trying to keep you on and get you to search for more things. And so them giving you a quick definition, it does make sense as well from a user standpoint. Like, why would I need to, if the definition is just going to be like, 20 words, then why, I don't need to load a whole page to get that part right. It does make some sense as from a user perspective. It's a bit annoying as you as a content creator, that if you're making like an elaborate explanation about this thing and then Google's just like scrapes that and then just shows it on the page and you don't even get any visitor traffic to your site, that would be a bit annoying.
Yeah. And it's not always the same thing. So, as a for instance, if you're searching for a product, a lot of the time nothing even shows up there, but instead you'll get a shopping section, which doesn't show to the side, but it shows just right at the top. If you search a business name, obviously the Google My Business listing will show up in that spot. If you search just a word or a term like water, a lot of the times a definition will show up in that spot. So it will vary depending on the type of things that you're searching.
Yeah, it definitely will. There's tons that can show up. Podcasts. You can actually run a podcast right in the browser. They've got like play functionality just in there because they have Google Podcasts. So video content. They can do like a short excerpt from a YouTube clip that says like how to start a lawnmower. And if it's only like one section of the video, they'll actually pull that, extract that out, and then show you this snippet of it in the search SERPs. Uh, and of course, you can go in further and watch the rest of the video if you want more context. But they definitely have a range of media options that show up there. Photos if you're looking for like pictures of sunsets, and so it'll show like a whole carousel of images of sunsets. There's lots of things that can show up to meet the requirements of the search that you put in, that you've given it a specific one. um, and so they, oh, what are you gonna say?
So yeah, I was just gonna continue on. Aside from that, that you would get up at the top right, the rest of the SERPs page, typically at the top, you're gonna have your paid ads section,
Yeah,
which will consist of usually 3 to 4 ad spots. Right at the top, which is all the Google ad placements. And then underneath that, again, you'll have a map option typically for if you're searching for things that are like local businesses or you're trying to find things locally, you'll have the maps listings
yeah,
right underneath that. And then there's a section that gives you like alternate searches to what you searched for to help with that context. Maybe it will be something where you can click and actually get better results out of that. And then after that, and Pip and I talked about this, almost halfway down the page, you finally get the organic search results.
yeah. Well,
which used to be like right at the top a long time
yeah,
ago.
yeah. Well, and it's definitely I've noticed it more and more with the local searches. The only modifier I put on that there's one extra spot that is just below the maps. There's a thing called the snack packs, and so that would be your local search where it's like typically three businesses that are best fitting to the search that you put in. And so if you're looking for a tree service company near me, that's a really coveted spot because like you said, you're halfway down, but you are expecting local results. So that snack pack is going to determine a lot about like who are you going to look at, and they're going to have, a bunch of additional information you might not even have in an organic search, like their reviews, how many, their phone number, so you can click to call right there, and so there's ways that Google does help. They make like that, like especially for local SEO, that you really want to show up in that map section. You really want to get those reviews because you can take special actions. It's not just visiting the website. Like you could get a direct call, and that of course you can track in your Google My Business to be like, oh, I'm big getting a ton of calls on my
Yeah,
profile.
yeah.
So very
Yeah,
valuable
that
real estate
that
there.
snack pack is really, I consider it part of like the maps. It's
Yeah.
the top businesses in your geographic area for the search term that you created on the maps. So, but yeah, I mean, this is a great point of how important it is to have your Google local listing optimized as best possible, is if you are truly a local business, because they show up basically first after the paid advertising. So, and
Yeah.
I think are much easier to rank in here than working on your organic um, keywords to actually get an organic ranking at the top of the first page, which is now halfway down.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's definitely it's shifted, and it's one that again, like kind of talking about like the zero click attribution. Like I don't think that it was malicious as much as like Facebook that makes like these big sweeping changes and like totally messes up everyone's businesses and how they advertise. Like I think that it skew. I think that they're not inherently bad. They're the way that they set up the SERPs, but it does put a lot more pressure on small businesses to make a bigger effort on their local SEO. Um, and while there are some parts that I don't like about that part, it definitely makes getting reviews, which is a thing that the business owner can do fairly easily themselves. Like it's not a while getting them is hard. It's not a complicated thing. It's not like learning SEO. It's just getting reviews that are positive and then responding to them. So I think that, and that's a factor that I tell pretty much all of our clients, like get reviews. You gotta be ruthless, keep going for them because they are going to make a huge impact for that part. So
Yeah, I'm dealing right now with a customer who I've worked with for like over 15 years, and he isn't one that likes to get reviews that are not 5 star. So for that, he doesn't ask a lot of clients for reviews unless he knows specifically that it's going to be a 5 star review. And even the reviews that he gets are typically not on Google. He just asks for a review and he wants to put it, he asks them, can I display this on my website? So he recently received a negative review on his Google My Business page, which doesn't look great because there's only 2 reviews now. One's a 5 star and one's a 1 star. So
yeah,
at least if you're allowing the normal review process to happen and inviting clients to review, the mass number of reviews that you get will hopefully, if you're a good business, be on the high side and not on a negative side. But now he, doesn't look great because there's only 2 reviews. One's horrible and one's great. So
yeah. Well, and yeah, that is the eternal problem. The other thing is that by getting reviews that are moderated by Google, that has an air of objectivity because Google won't let spam. They're trying to be like they and Amazon spend a lot of effort to make any review that you have of a business be on the up and up. Doesn't seem scammy. They like spend a lot of effort. So that also as an error, because it's not just like if you put it on your website, right? Like you don't even know if that person's real.
Yeah.
Whereas like the Google reviews, I think are super important because they kind of there's like a person that's attached to it. You can see other businesses they've left reviews for, and I think you and Pip talked about this one, but we had a client who had a review where they were the person's review was just a 3 star, and it's like, well, I haven't even been to this business, but it doesn't look good, and so obviously the other part about that is we could flag that because that didn't seem appropriate because they didn't even use the service and they claimed it,
Right.
and we had it
Right.
taken down on that ground. And it's definitely one where we looked into that person, right? Because you could click on their name, you could see all the other reviews, and it was the exact same thing they had done for every other business.
Really.
So, and it was just weird. It was a
It's not a
really,
review, and it's an opinion.
yeah,
A
yeah. It was
random
very odd.
opinion of something that you've not even tried.
Yeah, but that it gives a like an air of some legitimacy that like this person has a timeline that they've been doing things, they've left other reviews, you can see where they've been, and whether they're just like, I don't know, like a person that just doesn't even use the service and then like uh, leaves reviews anyway. So it's definitely having like a third party that's neither you or the person leaving the review. It's definitely has some ways to help you with like legitimacy on your website as well.
Mhm. So then moving on with another section of the SERPs that are becoming more and more important, I think, are is a video section. There's always some type of video area within the SERPs. On the search that I've just done, it's in between. It splits the organics into two. So there's like 5 or 6 organics, and then they have a video section of top videos for my search. It's not always there. Sometimes it's at the top. Sometimes it's somewhere in between, I believe. But you will get another component on the SERPs for potential videos that are related to your search.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely one that the YouTube is taking. I think that I had heard that Google is also taking a lot of notes from the YouTube people and how they set up their algorithms to do search intent, because they've been really YouTube is highly successful at having high retention for a website where people will spend like a ton of time on it. So they're using that to figure out like how are they triggering people. And so I won't be surprised if we get more YouTube style recommendations that come out of this, because they've been very successful at optimizing their algorithm. Uh,
Now, do you know specifically if the video part of the SERP is only YouTube videos, or would they also flag videos that are on websites in this type of area?
So I do have an anecdote that we had worked with someone who actually got a call from Google because they did get it on there. Because typically only people with on YouTube, because you have to do this like in-depth schema to really like label it properly, and of course YouTube does it out of the box, so that's why YouTube always shows up. And so this company had done it where they actually could show up for in organic searches, and Google called them and asked them how they did it because they did not expect that someone was going to show up for that.
Huh.
Because like, and they had like set up like a dedicated page, and it had like all the schema that was on it as part of the video. And so it was definitely hearing that and then kind of pulling it apart. It made a lot of sense what they had done, but it's just generally it's difficult. The other part about it is that generally most people host their videos on YouTube because it's free. And so like, you know, videos are heavy, terrible things to try and like host yourself. So having the service like YouTube kind of makes sense that a lot of people are going to host it on there and then just embed it on
Yeah.
their website.
And now that you say that, I believe in the past I have come across a video within the SERPs that might have been on Vimeo or something. So
Yeah.
it is possible. I was just wondering if Google, and Google owns YouTube, if it was specifically set up that what you searched basically just pulled up, search results for that term of videos that are on Facebook, or sorry, on YouTube specifically, or if the algorithm actually does have information of just videos that would be related to that search from any website at all, or if it was really just specific to looking at YouTube and presenting YouTube video options. So it sounds
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
not specific, but
It's
very difficult.
yeah, yeah. It's one of those ones that I am I gonna say that they're not favoring their own content? I'd be a little suspicious if they didn't do a little bit of favoritism. But just like the Google Ads algorithm, it's supposed to be separation of church and state for them. So the YouTube search engine results are supposed to be different from the Google search results and different from the Google Ads auction. Those are all supposed to be separated out and not, interacting with each other. But I wouldn't be if it turned out that there was a little bit more crossover than they were expecting, then I wouldn't be surprised. That's all I would say for that part.
And so then when we get that's a lot of the SERP options. And when you get to the bottom, they also have a related search section,
Hmm.
as well as alternate search options to extend again what you searched for that context. And one of the things Pip and I talked about quickly was using the suggestions on a search term or key phrase as additional items to really think about optimizing for, because if Google's suggesting these, you have to think there's obviously others that are searching them or volume for those searches. So it could be a way to look through those and decide, oh, I'm actually going to use one of their suggested longer tail key phrases that they're suggesting to search for what I just searched, in trying to optimize for that as well.
Yeah, it's definitely. I was going to say the same thing. That the people also asked, or anytime that Google kind of prompts you a little bit, it's like, oh, here's another related search. It's this related. Great keyword research time. Great time to get blog post ideas. Especially because as Google becomes more and more about like almost answering, like you ask it a question, right? Like, what is the square root of pi? Like something you're asking it a question.
Mm-hmm.
That's more and more of how it's responding, how people are responding to it. And so if you take that as you're writing blog posts and then you're like asked three questions, and then you're answering them right after, and then make that the heading of parts of the blog post, like you can answer multiple parts, and then Google's like, oh, this person's answering the question that these people are asking. Okay, cool. And then you can start ranking for those as well.
Awesome. So that's the SERPs from top to bottom. Was there anything that we didn't touch on, um, as
Uh,
far as
so one of the big
elements that are
ones
on the SERPs page?
So one of the big ones that I think I'm very curious to see what the future of it is going to be, because it really came to the fore in at the start of COVID, was the shopping, everything kind of related to the e-commerce functionality and how that comes
Yeah.
onto the SERPs page. Because there's a pay function, there's a free function, there's now something called enhanced free listings. I just spotted that yesterday, so I haven't done enough research, but it's definitely one where I think the e-commerce functionality, as Google tries to take on Amazon, is going to be very interesting, and how that interconnects with all of its other Google assets and how it displays it on the SERPs page. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be something that I'm very interested in seeing how it's going to be handled, how deeply integrated it's going to all be, because Google and Shopify are building those connections that they announced, and so I'm sure that those are in the works, where products that you have in your video on YouTube also can show up on the shoppings tab. Also, so I'm really interested to see how that's going to look in the future, because e-commerce functionality is definitely, I think, the dam's kind of burst on that one. And even with Google Shopify taking, I think they were down 60% on their stocks because they didn't hit their quarterly earnings. I think that they're still, that's going to be the future of it, especially with taking on Amazon.
Yeah, and I know just the other day I came across an email that was really pushing the free Woocommerce plugin that allows you to integrate all of your products within your Woocommerce store onto Google, or in the free shopping listings, or being able to create paid ads with your products as well.
Yeah.
So definitely something to keep an eye on, because, as you said, Google and Shopify are working together. I know WooCommerce is also trying to keep up with that functionality, which you can already use. I think you could probably also already use something with Shopify, but this what they're working on is probably even more of an integration to make it easier to do it all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's also that, like, as Shopify and Google build the API connection, that, like, well, you've got the API connection now, right? So then it's like, well, we're going to integrate it with WooCommerce, and because we had just set someone up with that as well, that had wanted to get on the free listings, and they were on WooCommerce, and so it's definitely a different process. Like, it's got its own little quirks that's a little bit different than Shopify, but it was, fairly straightforward to get done. And so it's definitely something I would look at. The other one that goes off of that is the weird part about Merchant Center, where they also have, just because I remember this in the search, is there is something called Pointy, which does live inventory management on your Google My Business page. So you can go to like a bike shop, and you could see this if you type in Comox Bike Shop. There is one of the ones that's in Comox, and it will actually tell you what level of inventory all their products are at. So you can, before you even leave the house, you can say, like, do you even have this available in your store? And you can see in real time what inventory. So I think that that's going to be really cool for people out there, as like, do I, if I go there, am I even going to get the product that I'm looking for? And you can check that
Mm-hmm.
ahead of time.
And that WooCommerce plugin, just if anyone was watching and wanted to know specifically what it was called, it's called Google Listings and Ads for WooCommerce.
Yeah, yeah, that's the one. And it's like, you're looking for the tab that says like Google Ads free listing under it, because there's like coupons, and then there's another one in the subsections, and then you want the Google Ads listing, and then you just connect it with your Merchant Center account, and it's you
Yeah.
know it's like I said, it's fairly straightforward to uh setting all that up is the annoying part. Once it's set up, it's fairly, you're good to go, but it's can be annoying because, like, there's always, some product that didn't meet some requirement, and you got to like update it. And once it's all cleaned up and they can talk to each other well, then yeah, it's been fairly straightforward to actually like do shopping ads or do free listings. And there's just more ways to get your products out there.
Hopefully, the shopping SERP section, as it as it grows and becomes more prominent, we can do another episode in the future specifically on that. If when the Shopify thing comes out, and when we know more about how the WooCommerce one works, we can make that its own topic.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
We're
That's
really
yeah, it's definitely one to do a deeper dive on it. But it does look like we are at time.
Yeah, one final thing before we wrap up. I was just
Yep.
wondering, of all of the SERPs sections that we've gone through today, Do you find any combination of either for optimizing works best? Should people, I mean, we're obviously probably going to say focus on local,
Yeah.
because that one is probably the big one to work on. But other than the local, what would you suggest the combination of things people try out to get themselves on there would be?
Yeah. Generally, so it, of course, the classic answer, it depends.
Mm.
So what is your strategy? What is, think of if someone were to go to Google and look for your business, obviously we talk about like a local business. Well, then you're going to want to focus on the snack pack and optimizing for that, getting your Google My Business listing. If you're in e-commerce, like we talked about, get the shopping, getting all that sorted out. Also, if you're in e-commerce and people don't really know what it is you do, then I would look at, building your funnel around what is the stages, right? So, like starting off with some blog posts that answer a question. So one of the people I really like is they're like cultures. So, if you want to make yogurt yourself, you want to make kombucha. Well, they start off with how to make kombucha, and they have a video that goes with that, and that leads over to the product so you can buy it. And so they use content marketing to get people to go from asking a question to all the way to purchasing a product, and they have that as built into the funnel. So I would look at options like that. And so again, really think about like what's the journey that someone takes to find you and answer the questions that are going on along the way, because ultimately that's what it's going to be, the questions, right? Like first you got to figure out they need to know that they have a problem. Then you need to go to why should I pick your problem over someone else, or your solution over someone else, and then ultimately figure a way to convert them. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how I would summarize it: is look at that part and then see how someone would type that into Google to find you.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for that final question.
No
We're a
worries. No.
minute or two over, so
Yeah. Worked out perfect. And next week is going to be about conversion rate optimization. So after you get people, you figured out how to get them onto the site. How do you get them to take the next step, and making sure your site's set up for that?
yeah. And you telling me that reminds me I need to do the new banner for the group today.
Yeah, subtle hint there. Just slide that in. Um, and so yeah, it's been a lot of fun. My name is Phelan. Say hi to and if you have any other questions about this, you can find us in Cyberpunk Marketing Mixer group. And yeah, we're more than happy to help continue the conversation. And again, my name's Phelan. Work at Seymour Digital Media.
And I'm Greg with Original 72. Thanks everyone for joining.
Okay, bye.